Hey everybody, Greg Casillo from Casillo.com. Let's go over some stuff that you absolutely have to know on your camera. Now, my quick tip from a couple days ago was read your camera manual. Hopefully you've done that. Hopefully you know most of this stuff, so it's not really a big deal. But in case you haven't, these are the things that you really need to concentrate on in your camera manual and on your camera itself to really know how to do. Alright, so primary stuff. These are the big ones you've got to know inside and out. First, program modes. Basically, how to turn the camera off of program. We don't want to use program. Ever. I never use program mode. Even when I hand my camera to someone else to use, I've already set the exposure so they don't have to worry about it. I don't want it on program. Ever. Second, the other exposure stuff. Matrix, spot meter, center weighted meter. Got to know how to do that stuff. You got to know when to use each of those. So make sure you do know how to use them and how to change them on the camera. Same with your ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. Basic stuff, but you'd be surprised how many people don't know how to change their ISO on their camera quickly and be able to find that as soon as possible if they really need to switch it right away. Or they forget to switch it when they go from outside to inside or vice versa. Focus stuff. This is one of the big ones where you really need, because you've already set your exposure, you've already set a lot of stuff, you know, it's kind of all ready to go, but focus is the last thing on that anybody thinks about, because that's when you're in the camera and you're actually shooting. So being able to change from auto area to dynamic to single if you're on an Nikon camera. I don't know what they're called on the Canons. Sorry, somebody please let me know. Continuous to single to manual modes. On my D3, I know where this button is, and I can just reach around and flick this button right here very quickly, very easily. I know what it feels like. Just the other day, this past Thursday actually, I'm a volunteer firefighter, and we were practicing being able to put on our self-contained breathing apparatus in complete darkness to be able to put the mask on, put our hood over our head, snap in, put our helmet on, the whole 9 yards in complete darkness, no light, gloves on, everything. You know what? That might come in handy someday. I really need to know that, because that air could be my lifeline someday. So it's stuff that if you don't know your camera, know your buttons, know all that stuff, it can make a difference between getting a photo and not getting a photo. Some other little stuff, but you still need to know how to do it. Number one, formatting your cards. Inserting memory cards, knowing where the door is to insert a card, making sure you have the right type of card. You know, those are all important things. White balance. You guys know I shoot auto white balance probably 90% of the time, but there are times when I will need to change it, typically to show the photo to a client. If it, you know, if the white balance looks weird or a little off, I'd rather show them what it really is going to look like on the back of the screen, so that's when I'll change it. Dial direction. That's a huge one. Being able to change it, whether it's going left or right, whether you know it's going to go up or down with your shutter speed, it only comes with practice. That's all it is just practice with your equipment. Changing lenses. That's a big one. If you can't reach up and take your lens off like that without looking and then be able to put it back on like that, it's just stuff to be able to do over time. You're going to learn it, but it'll make it so much easier to know which direction that lens needs to go to be able to take it off. Canon users, I think their lenses go backwards, but Nikons don't. Nikons go this way, and that's it, and then they click in. So knowing how to do that on the fly without even thinking, knowing where the buttons, the little dot is to line up, all that stuff can really save a photo once in a while. Also, buttons on your lenses. You might have a VR button or a manual focus button, something like that on the lens. If you forget that's there, and oh man, my autofocus isn't working, I think I gotta send my camera in for service. Well, maybe it's just that little button you forgot to flick. So knowing where all these primary things are can really make a huge difference in your photography. So now we have some secondary things that you still need to know, still pretty important, but maybe not things you're going to use every single day. Date and time, big thing. Might change it twice a year if you're here in the States for daylight savings time. If you travel a lot in the different time zones, you're probably going to need to change time on your camera a lot. So knowing how to do that and not forgetting, for that matter, can you know, basically keep your stuff organized keep your photos organized better instead of having to fix it later in Lightroom or Photoshop or another program. Flash modes, knowing whether you want to shoot with a front curtain sync or a rear curtain sync and know what the difference is. Knowing how to change that can make some really cool photos someday. You really never know. Bracketing. Now, I'm not a big fan of bracketing as far as portraits or weddings or sports, stuff like that. You just don't want to use it for any of those. It's great though for landscapes, sunsets. I'll use it for sometimes. Same with product photography. I'll use bracketing for. Knowing how to turn it on real quick. You really never know. Sun's going down. It's right at the right point. You want to get a good shot, but you want to forget about the bracketing. You want to be able to turn it on quickly and use it. Can save you a shot. Same thing with shooting speed. Switching from single to continuous low, continuous high. Knowing where the button is, being able to quickly change, or the menu item, whatever it is, being able to change those quickly can make a big difference. Now, shooting speed can be, it might have been a primary. It was kind of on the fence, but I left it down here in the secondary one since it's not something that I change every single day personally. Then again, I don't do a lot of sports shooting, so that probably makes a difference. But those are my secondary ones. I got one more segment for you, and that's on other stuff that you still need to know. So here's the final list. For the most part, these are just other stuff that you kind of need to know, you should know at least a little bit about, and most of them are set and forget. Turn them on one time, and you never go back and look at them again, for the most part anyway. Number one of those, raw and bit depth. Always be shooting raw, and just set your bit depth on the highest setting and be done. If you say the file sizes are too big, then just buy another hard drive. They're really cheap. They're less than $1 a gig now. Just buy another hard drive. You don't want to have to worry about it. Number of focus points. I suggest using the most number of focus points that you can. That way you can compose and pick the point that gets closest to where you actually have the subject or piece of the image, part of the image that you want to focus on. Especially that comes really handy when you're using a single point. So I suggest using as many as your camera has. Auto FP flash on the Nikons, high speed sync on the Canons. Just turn it on. It doesn't hurt anything, and it's not something that you need to really think about. As long as you're using a Canon or a Nikon flash, it's just going to work. You're going to be able to take your shutter speed higher than what is normally rated, typically 2/50th, 200th of a second, something like that, depending upon the camera. So it doesn't hurt to just leave that on all the time. Image comments and copyright. I think I spelled comment wrong. Image comment and copyright. Just type in your information if you want to. Set it and forget it. That's what I do. As soon as I get the camera, I type it in and I don't have to touch it again. This is one of my favorite things that I do when I'm shooting. This is the one time that I will chimp, and that's to check focus on an image if I really need to. And the way that I do that is with this multi-selector button, this center button right here. This is called the multi-selector. There's a center button that's in there. Not all the Nikons have it, but it's one of my favorites. What you can do, at least on the D3 series, I think D700 has it, I think D300 has it, and maybe even D7000. Not sure about any other cameras. Anyway, it's custom setting F1 on the D3, and what it'll do is allow you to zoom in as you turn on the image preview with the top button. Okay, then you hit that multi-selector center button, and it'll zoom in to your focus point and tell you right away if it's in focus or not. So if you had moved the focus point to my nose, it's going to automatically zoom in to my nose as soon as you turn the screen on to preview the image, and then hit that center button and center button on the multi-selector. It's going to instantly zoom in and tell you if your focus is sharp or not, or if it's in the right spot. And that's a really great way to proof your images, be able to quick and keep moving. It's awesome. Anyway, how do you turn that on? Again, custom setting F1. It's on the D3. Playback mode, and then zoom on and off, and I use medium magnification. Last 5 things here are all things that I leave off, and again, set them and forget them. Number 1, image review. It just gives you a bad habit of chimping. Just like I said I think it was last week's quick tip, just turn it off, don't worry about it. Picture controls, they only affect JPEGs, doesn't matter. Color space, same thing. It only affects the JPEGs. Although the one thing that does change on the RAWs, at least on the Nikon cameras, is if you have it on Adobe 98, it'll put an underscore in the beginning of your file names. That's annoying to me, so I just leave it on sRGB. D-lighting, don't need it, only affects JPEGs. And auto ISO, again, it's only going to affect, well, the auto will affect anything, but you don't want to use that. You know, that's why we know, that's why we learn, that's why we get better, that's why we do everything. And that's why you guys are following me, because you want to learn how to take better photos. So turn this stuff off because you don't need it. So what did I miss? I think this is a pretty comprehensive list. I've actually been thinking about this one for a while. So let me know what I missed. Let me know what they are on your cameras. If you had a Sony, if you have a Canon, if you had an Olympus, something else. So let me know what those are. Questions, comments, concerns. I'd love to hear them. Greg Curzillo, Curzillo.com. Keep shooting. See ya.